Welcome back to Murder with the Missus. I'm Darren.
And I'm Amy, and today we're going to tell you about Anita Knutson.
Don't forget to smash that like button. Check out the description for the links of all of our podcast platforms, CashApp, and Buy Me a Coffee. Like, share, subscribe, and don't forget to tell your friends. Always tell your friends. See, you screwed it up there. Always tell your friends. So,
I was expecting the do not.
I know. Throwing a curveball.
Yeah, you did.
Mm-hmm.
Now I look like the dumb one.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Lord. Okay.
So get to it.
I am.
Oh.
Your home is supposed to be your sanctuary, right? Your safe space.
Yep.
The one guaranteed place where you can relax and be your weird little self. But when you have a roommate, it's kind of important that you get along. If you don't, then your quiet place is gone. And this is more common with college students because starting out in life, trying to get an education, money's tight. So it's more common that you need a roommate. But hell, these days, rent's astronomical no matter where you are, so whatever.
Word.
This case, though, is about college kids, so let's get into it. Anita was born in Orange County, California in 1988. When she was 6 months old, she was adopted by Sharon and Gordon Knutson, and they lived in Anaheim. About a year later, Sharon and Gordon then adopted a 4-month-old baby boy, Daniel. Years later, they would go on to adopt another girl, Anna, who is 3 years younger than Anita. So Sharon and Gordon now had 3 kids at home, and all was right with the world. Now, they had more biological children, but they were all grown at this point. So what I mean is that at this time, they had 3 young ones at home.
So they decided to start at the beginning.
Yeah.
When they had just got their freedom.
Right? Like all their kids leave and they're like, we need more kids. Yeah. They had a lot of love to give, I guess.
That's good.
Yeah.
There's a lot of kids out there that need it.
That need it. Absolutely. Anita in particular sounds pretty smart. She published a book in the 8th grade. And then in 2002, when she was 13 years old, the family moved to Butte, North Dakota. Now that's a big difference from California. Anita loved reading, dancing. She played the violin, the piano, and she also played soccer. She graduated from high school in 2006 and started at Minot State University that fall. She was going for a degree in elementary education. Her sister said teaching was her calling. She was charismatic and caring by nature, so teaching seemed like a perfect fit, and she was passionate about it, so it was working out. She also worked 2 part-time jobs while she was in school, one at Vanity in the Dakota Square Mall, I remember those, and one as a housekeeper at the Fairfield Inn. She was busy, but she stayed in contact with her family. The first weekend in June of 2007, the family went to Bismarck, North Dakota for Daniel's sports tournament. But Anita didn't go with him because she had to work at the inn on Saturday, and she was starting summer classes on Monday, which was June the 4th. On Friday, she did talk to her mom when she got home from work, but after that, they couldn't get a hold of her.
Red flag.
Red flag. But they're roughly 2 hours away. So they're like, well, maybe she's just busy or, enjoying her weekend.
Yeah.
But by the time they get back and they still haven't heard from her, Gordon went to check in person on Monday. She stayed in a single-story apartment community off campus, and many college kids lived there. When he got there, he saw her car, but she wasn't answering the door. And the door was locked, so he couldn't even get in.
Mm-hmm.
Now, these kind of doors had a deadbolt style lock that you could only lock and unlock with a key. So keep that in mind.
From the inside too?
Right. Inside and outside. It
with
was
the key.
Only key. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, he went to town and came back because he was with a couple of friends and they were doing stuff. And he went to the apartment manager's place to get her to open the door for him. The apartment manager was not too big on this idea because she said that she could get in trouble for doing that, which, yeah. And Gordon reminded her that if something was wrong, she could get in trouble if she didn't do that. So there you go.
Okay.
The maintenance man showed up and got caught up on what was going on. And he said that he had found a screen that morning, like a screen off of a window that could have maybe come from her apartment because it was in that area. So they all head over and go to the window of Anita's bedroom. And the screen, of course, was gone.
Well, I mean, that kind of gives them probable cause to go ahead and go in and check.
Absolutely,
So-
right? So they go to the window and Gordon can see Anita laying face down on her bed. And he told the manager to get that door opened. She unlocked it and they went in. Gordon touched Anita's leg, but it was cold. He told the landlady to call 911, but she was already in the middle of that phone call.
Damn.
Yeah.
So they was too late.
Yeah, they were too late. By quite a while since she was already cold.
Yeah.
Now she had 2 stab wounds in her chest. One to her right lung and one that lacerated her heart. So that was the fatal one. She did have a large spot of blood on the back of a pink robe that she was wearing, and there was a spot of blood on the bed. Now, the way she was positioned made them believe that she had been laying down when she was stabbed. So, like, she's laying down and she's stabbed in the chest. So they're trying to figure out how that blood got to her back. So they believe that she was laying down, she was stabbed, blood kind of pooled down to that area, and then she tried to sit up, but ended up falling face first. So she was kind of bent at an angle and face down. It was like she had been sitting with her left leg bent at the knee, right? And then the upper part of her body just fell forward. She had no defensive wounds on her. There was no evidence of sexual assault and no sign of a robbery. According to the report, it said multiple items of value, such as cash in Anita's purse, her laptop, her cell phone, and a digital camera were located within her bedroom, and nothing was disturbed, suggesting that theft was a motive. Now, the single window in Anita's room, which is located just past the foot of her bed, was wide open and missing that screen. Now, a pocket knife with dried blood on it was also found on her bed, close to the wall and the open window.
So the murder weapon was on her bed.
The murder weapon was on her bed, a pocket knife, and it had a medallion on either side of it where it flips out at the point of the bend.
Okay.
So it had a Native American face wearing a headdress, but one of the medallions was missing from one side of it. The maintenance man, Marty, took the police to his workshop and showed them the screen. He told them that he had been making his rounds that morning and found it on the ground near that apartment building. It was cut with a large backwards L, and the frame was bent, so he took it to the workshop so that he could fix it later. So since the frame was damaged, the curtain rod was bent, and the front door was locked, the working theory was that someone came through the window and killed her. Right? Makes sense.
Yeah.
When they had the testing done, they found more than 3 sources of DNA on that knife, but it was all inconclusive. They also found, they found Anita's, of course, but they also found Anita's blood on the screen where it was cut. So then they had to look into a whole different theory, because that screen would have had to have been cut after Anita was stabbed in order to get her blood in that backwards L, right?
Yeah.
And then maybe it was used to look like an intruder came through that window. That means that whoever did it would have had to have a key to be able to lock the door when they left.
Yeah. So who all had a key?
Who all had a key? Yep. So the key is up for debate. Supposedly, according to the manager / landlady Laura, these were special keys that you couldn't just go to the hardware store and have a copy made. And then
they're usually stamped, do not copy.
Right, because they don't want a bunch of college kids handing out keys to the apartment, right? Yeah. It makes sense. And then back at this time, they didn't have the little kiosks at like Walmart where you could just stick your key in and have a copy made in 5 minutes. It doesn't work that way.
Mm-hmm.
So Laura obviously had a key because she's the landlady / apartment manager. Her boyfriend, the maintenance man, Marty, he had a key. Anita obviously had a key. And her roommate, Nicole Thomas, had a key. So where's Nicole?
Yeah.
They track her down. She tells them that her and Anita were best friends, right? And she had come home from work late Friday night and she heard Anita playing music in her bedroom. Now, Nicole spent most weekends at her family's farm. So she came home, she packed up some clothes, went to bed. And then the next morning, which would be Saturday, she got up and went to the farm and she was there all weekend long. She never left. She never saw Anita. until she had to go to work on Monday. Now, she still hadn't seen Anita, of course, but that's when she left the farm, Monday, to go to work. They have her come to the apartment to let them know if anything stands out to her. And it did. Immediately, she told them that her pink iPod was missing. Now, her reaction was concerning, to say the least. She didn't seem too awfully upset that, her roommate had been murdered in their apartment. She was more upset about her iPod. And she was a key holder. So she goes on to the suspect list.
Yeah.
Police do interview about 40 people or so, but the suspect list only ends up with 6 people on it. Right?
I don't know. Tell me about him.
All right, let's have it. You've got Tyler. Now, I start with him because he was at the scene after they found Anita. Like, he literally showed up at the apartment. He actually went to the prom with her in high school and moved to the apartments to be closer to her, allegedly. He told the police that he was in love with her, but that they were not in a relationship. He went on to create a page on Facebook for her, the Justice for Anita page. He posted a 19-minute video on YouTube as a memorial to her. And he and his brother were both questioned by the police. They gave their DNA, and both were cleared as suspects because they had nothing that tied them to the crime. It wasn't their DNA on the knife. There was just nothing putting them there.
Okay.
Someone did call in a tip that they saw an out-of-place jogger running from the area of the apartments at around 7:30 a.m. on Sunday, June the 3rd. Now, he was in his early 20s, had dark hair, and was wearing a white T-shirt that had what could have been bloodstains on it and dark shorts. They even released a sketch of this man. And a man came out saying, "I'm the jogger. It's me." They look at him, get into his story, and they're able to eliminate him as a suspect as well. Yeah.
So, all right. So now we're 4 down.
Now we're down to 4. Yeah.
Okay. So we're down to 4.
Excuse me. We're getting over some stuff.
So you had 7.
I had 6.
Okay. Well, you already did the 2 brothers and then.
Well, only the one brother was a suspect.
Oh, okay.
They interviewed both.
Okay.
But only the one was a suspect.
Okay.
Now they look at Anita's phone to see, obviously, who is she communicating with right before she dies.
Yeah.
And that leads them to Money Mike.
Money Mike.
Money Mike. He and Anita had met at a Denny's a couple of months before. Early Sunday morning were their last text messages. So at 4:43 a.m., he texted her, "I thought you were going to reply to last text." At 4:48, she said, "I didn't know what to say to it." And at 4:53, he said, "You don't say anything." Now, she never read that last text from him, and she never sent another text after the one she sent at 4:48. So this is helping them kind of narrow down a timeline. They could tell from their exchanges that he may have wanted a romantic relationship with her, but there was nothing showing that they actually were in one. They were just talking. They had just met, no big deal. He even, he didn't know where she lived. He couldn't even have told him how to get to her apartment. And there was nothing tying him to the scene. So they crossed him off the list too. And I will say that he then passed away in 2009. So they're not able to go back and question him anymore. And then there's Marty. So this is the maintenance man. And he's also a key holder.
Mm-hmm.
There was a discrepancy as to where exactly he had found that screen that morning. Originally, he said it was on the ground, but it switched to him actually taking it out of the window.
Oh.
Which brought the question as to how he could have taken it off of there without seeing her body laying on the bed. Because her bed is literally, it ends at the window.
Yeah.
So if the curtains were down, like they said they were, curtains were down, rods bent, you could see clearly through that window.
Yeah.
So he did give them a DNA sample.
Yeah.
But Marty, sadly, took his own life in his workshop on New Year's Day in 2009.
Well, really?
Yes. So this looks very suspicious to some people, like he couldn't live with what he had done, and that's why he took his own life.
Yeah.
But according to his girlfriend of 10 years, Laura, the maintenance lady or the building manager lady, she said that doctors had recently told him that he possibly had Parkinson's disease, and so they were going to have to do more testing. And he was really trying to get this other job and he didn't get it. So he was pretty sad about that. His sister said that a niece of theirs had actually done the same thing to herself a couple of months before he did. So he was sad about that. And he believed that Laura was cheating on him. So add that to the list of what's going wrong in Marty's life. And they say that Laura actually came to his memorial service with another man. So
that's kind of cold.
That's pretty damn cold, Laura. It wasn't a good look.
No.
Now, he was ruled out as a suspect, but a lot of people remain skeptical of him because of his story and the timing and all the. So now we're down to 2 possible suspects. So let's take a minute to hear from our sponsor, and then we'll get into the rest of it.
All right. So just hang in there with us just for 1 minute. Did you hear what happened last night at the laundromat?
No, what?
Some clothespins held up a couple of shirts.
Oh, God. That's a good one. Now, when it's cold outside, do you like to pull out a pair of warm sweatpants straight from the dryer and put them on?
Yeah, it's nice and cozy.
Wouldn't you rather do that at home and not in a laundromat?
Oh, God.
If you live in an apartment and need a washer and dryer that only you can use, get a pin.
You can go to My Laundry Solutions, the #1 choice for washers and dryer rental.
They're in Tulsa, Oklahoma, Springfield, Joplin, and Kansas City, Missouri, Sherman, Dallas, Houston, and Lubbock, Texas. Their newest location is in Fort Worth. They have more locations opening in Texas in 2025 and 2026. No credit check, free service, professional installation, and your account's available online, all for about $1 a day. Go to your leasing office, go to mylaundrysolutions.com, or call 800-535-4411.
Stop being taken to the cleaner and give them a call today. Yeah, go to them.
Yeah, why not?
They're good people.
Yeah, $1 a day? Come on.
Yeah.
Can't get anything for $1 a day.
It's
right
a
here.
win-win.
It really is. It really is. All right, so when we left, we were down to 2 suspects, and these are the main suspects in her case. A couple of days after Anita's death, a man was arrested for breaking into houses in the Minot area while being armed with a knife. Now, this was Devin. He also resembles the sketch of the jogger a little bit. He told police that he had been in a lot of houses around that area, so he's not really denying a lot of it. But he wasn't in the area when they believe Anita was killed. There is a video of him and some family members, along with some other people, getting off of a train. Now, that train came from hours away. It's like a 5-hour train ride back to the Minot area. So he stayed on the list, but in order for him to be a top suspect, they would have to prove that his timeline was somehow wrong, right? So they're not crossing him off, but they're putting him on the back burner. And this leaves us with Nicole, the roommate.
Yeah.
Another key holder. But she didn't see Anita on Friday, remember, or the rest of the weekend.
So she says.
So she says. Because then in her second interview with police, she told them that when she got home Friday night, Anita was in the kitchen and they had a conversation. Yeah. And that, so now she did see her, but that she also heard a male voice in Anita's room around 1 a.m. So that's new information as well.
Mm-hmm.
She said that she had got to the family farm Saturday morning and then didn't leave until Monday to go to work. But her aunt told the police that Nicole was at the bar Saturday night. Like her aunt owned a bar and 19-year-old Nicole was at that bar Saturday night. So she did leave the farm. So then they're like, okay, where else did you go? Right?
Yeah.
Then Nicole remembered, oh, yeah. I did go to that bar. And then eventually in one of her stories, it came out that she actually had come back to the apartment at some point Saturday night to get clothes. So the story just keeps changing.
You know, changing your story, you know, it'll make you look suspicious even if you don't.
Oh, yeah.
If you didn't do anything.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's like just come out with what it is, what you did. Because if you sit there and say, no, I didn't, and then you're like, oh, well, you know.
Maybe you did.
I did, but I didn't.
Right.
You know what I mean?
They're not going to listen to you anymore.
Yeah.
Your words mean nothing.
Because then you're like, you know, you're not a reliable witness.
No, not by any means. But remember, they were best friends, so she wouldn't do anything to hurt her. right?
Of course.
Now, here are some texts that they found from Nicole to Anita in the couple of months leading up to her death.
Great.
Okay. So next time you leave and don't plan on coming back in the morning and lock your door because God knows I'm dying to get in there, shut the fucking alarm off. Another one. And just for the heads up, my dad and I are going to talk to the landlord ASAP and see what we can do. Because honestly, I have no idea what I did to make you all of a sudden be all weird on me. But I'm going to tell you right now, I sure as hell ain't going to put up with it till December. This sucks. And I may sound like a bitch, but what goes around comes around. Bro? And then another one. Are you going to move out or am I if we can get out of this house if one of us leaves? So obviously they were not getting along. They were trying to break the lease. Yes.
Best fucking friends.
BFFs.
Yeah.
She talks about the stress level causing problems with her family. And then on a day that Anita's body was found, based on the time, the cops would have already arrived at the apartment when Nicole sent Anita a text asking, what does your mom want my phone number for? So she's like, still texting.
Yeah. So, they're not such besties as they say, or
They
she
are
says.
not even close. They're trying to break the lease and get away from each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there was an issue with the alarm clock, as we've heard. Apparently, Anita would lock her bedroom door and then her alarm would go off and Nicole couldn't get in to turn it off. And she really liked her sleep and that was keeping her from sleeping. So they argued about that. And then I mentioned the door being locked because it was about a month or so before Anita's death that she had her dad come and put a lock on her bedroom door because some say she was afraid of Nicole. Like she was afraid she was going to come in her room and do stuff to her stuff, like damage her stuff. And she just didn't trust her. There was also an issue with a fish tank. Nicole says that Anita kept turning it off when she would leave on the weekends to go to the farm, that Anita would just shut it off. And eventually all the fish in the tank died because that's how they get their oxygen.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a big war going on in this apartment and they find this all out. So all this shows they didn't get along. There aren't any actual threats though. So there's not anything that's like, I'm going to kick your ass or I'm going to do this or that. There's none of that. So they don't really have a lot to go on, just that they didn't get along. And so the case goes cold. Like they can't get any information from anybody. Nothing is putting anybody at the scene. Of course, Nicole's DNA is found all through the apartment because she lives there. So what do you do?
Yeah.
Until 2021. And that's when cold justice came calling. And I say that literally. The Oxygen series called Cold Justice got with the Minot police because they were getting ready to do their 100th episode and they wanted to do it on Anita's case. Kelly Sigler from she was a Harris County, Texas prosecutor. I've seen her on several true crime things. She came on board to help too. And they went back through the case file. They had the DNA retested with all the new technology, and that lit a fire under this case's ass. But don't get excited about that DNA testing because it still went nowhere. It was still inconclusive. But why let that stop progress? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
At a news conference on March 16th of 2022, the police chief said, finally, with the help of cold justice, we were able to move forward and regain focus. Due to the resources, logistics, planning, and experts they were able to provide, we were able to obtain an arrest warrant for Nicole Rice. Because that's her new last name, Rice. So this is the roommate. So now 35-year-old Nicole is arrested at the Minot Air Force Base where she's a civilian hairdresser now.
Almost 20 years later.
Yes. Out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Now her bond was set at $120,000 cash or $250,000 in a corporate surety. And she's a single mom now, but she was able to post that $120,000 bond within 30 minutes and was out. So she's been out ever since she got arrested. There was a gag order put in place, so no details were released, and everyone was just waiting to see what would come out at trial, right? Her attorneys were something else.
Mm-hmm.
I have referred to them in my head because I can't talk about this case with you, but I've referred to them as Beavis and Batman because
Batman?
One of these attorneys' voices rivals the Bat. Like It's literally like, it's like
Okay, so you actually meant to put that.
Yes.
All right. I was like, it's Beavis and Butthead.
It was so bad. Like his microphones couldn't pick it up. Nobody could understand what he was saying because
I'm here for justice.
That's exactly what he sounded like. Yes. So Beavis and Batman.
Where is she?
Oh my God. Okay. So now they're going to talk about how Anita and Nicole met in high school, right? So it's not like they just were happenstance became roommates. They actually knew each other before they became roommates. One friend said that Nicole was very jealous of the attention that Anita got because she was beautiful and popular. Nicole texted Anita on another occasion, they brought it out, that she would get her out of that apartment one way or another. So that's kind of a threat. I know they said earlier that there weren't any, but that sounds kind of threatening.
So on this case pic I have up here, which one's Anita and which one's Nicole?
Anita is on the left.
So she's the dark-headed one?
Yes.
Okay.
And the blonde is Nicole.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Just for reference.
Yes. Now, allegedly, Nicole's mom, Jody, confronted Anita's mom at Anita's funeral due to her anger and frustration over the police questioning Nicole after the murder.
Oh.
What?
Wow. Real respectful there.
Real classy lady.
Yeah.
Now, I had told it had came out that Nicole would bring men home at like after the bar or after a party. And then the next day she would leave for class or work and just leave the men alone in the apartment with Anita. So that was another big point of contention they had. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's probably part of the reason for the, lock on her bedroom door.
Yes. That would make sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Strange men in the apartment she doesn't know. She just wakes up and there's some dude in the kitchen drinking orange juice out of the carton.
Yeah. Sup?
Exactly. Now, they did play a video at trial of two of the detectives and then a petite woman cutting a window screen and then attempting to crawl through it while it was still in the window frame. So they were trying to see if they could do that without ripping it in any way because the only damage to the screen was literally cut by the knife. So if they had come through the window, through the screen, they would have had to been able to do it without ripping it in any other way.
Especially if the screen was still in.
Right.
And that guy removed it.
Right. They're working off that theory. So they're now saying that is actually what happened, that he did not find it on the ground, that he actually took it out of the window. So that's what they're working off of. And they didn't do a very good job of this. I'm just going to say it. It was very poorly done. There was one report that I read that said that the window was 8 to 10 feet off the ground. So there would have been no way somebody could have climbed through that screen. But looking at the actual images of where the apartment was and looking at the apartments, they are single level apartment buildings. Yeah. They're not 8 to 10 feet off the ground. So I don't know where they're coming up with that. Nicole's friend Christina did testify that Nicole confessed to her that her and Anita argued and then Nicole stabbed her. She said that she went to the police back when Anita told her this, but they have no proof that she did. So the police are like, no, we don't have any. We never took a statement from her. She never came to us and told us that.
Good job.
Yeah. Nicole's ex had a similar story about Nicole confessing to him in 2008 when they were drunk. And he says he told the cops, but they also have no record of him telling the police.
Good job.
Now, the ex would then briefly date her again a few years later. So what's a murder confession when you're in love? Am I right?
Yep.
Nicole's supervisor at the call center she worked at during that time said that she was always talking about issues with her roommate, about being locked out of the Wi-Fi and the microwave, which I don't know what that means. Because I don't remember them saying...
Locked out of the microwave.
I don't remember them saying anything about there being like a padlock on the microwave, so I don't know what that means. I have no idea.
Huh.
But on June 4th, when she came into work, she was hurried. She was less social than she normally was. And the police called and told the supervisor, we need Nicole to come home now. And the supervisor goes to Nicole and it's like, hey, the cops just called and they said you need to come home. And they said that Nicole just dismissed it and actually called Anita a crackhead. Oh, my roommate's a crackhead.
What the hell?
What?
She didn't even know what was going on.
Right. Or did she?
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
My thing is like, you know, the knife.
Right.
So.
Right.
There had to been somebody who was like, oh, yeah, that's the knife that I give Nicole.
There actually is talk of the knife. So when they talk about Devin in trial, they say that he actually told them that he had a similar knife, right?
Yeah.
And this was a mass-produced knife. They sold them at like trade stores, powwows, things like that in the area. So it was pretty common. And he told them, hey, I had a knife like that, similar to that, and it had a medallion missing. So they're like, oh, you did it. That's one of the main reasons they focused on him. But then it came out later that his knife was different. It didn't have that headdressed medallion on it. It had something else on it. And he actually came up with that knife. Somebody was like, here's the knife he's talking about. And they're like, oh, he's still guilty. Anyways, we'll get into that.
Gotcha.
So rationally, though, if someone tells you the police want you to come home, a typical reaction would be that you go home to find out why the cops are at your house.
Yeah.
But she didn't. They actually had to go and get her, the police. She refused to come to the apartment. A coworker testified that after Anita died, that Nicole said that the police suspected her, but she would be fine as long as she kept her mouth shut. Yeah. And that she said after her and her parents were taken to the apartment, her dad told her she had to clean up the mess and made her sleep in a shed rather than in the house with them. I don't know what that has to do with anything. She said things like that if she would have done it, she wouldn't have had to cut the screen because she has a key. Well, duh. That's why they think that the screen was cut, to make it look like she missed the whole point of that. And she also said to people randomly, you don't want to get me angry. So she was that girl who's like, I'm the Hulk.
Yeah, she's a female Hulk.
Yeah. Now, several people brought up that she seemed more focused on that missing pink iPod than the fact that her roommate had been stabbed to death, in a place that she also lives in, right? So you would think that you would want to find the person. That way you don't have to worry about them coming back, right?
Yeah, and are we talking like a old school iPod Touch?
Well, this is 07.
It'd be an iPod Touch. Be
So,
like an old school one.
And it was, I guess, hot pink. So it probably was like did they have the nanos then?
Yeah.
It may have been like a nano or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just remember them being bright colors.
True.
Sergeant Carmen Asham testified that Nicole's story obviously changed several times. She told the different versions. Her Aunt Brenda testified that, now this is Nicole's aunt, her own aunt, testified that Nicole described Anita as looking so peaceful after she died. There was actually a couple of instances where she said things that she shouldn't have known, stuff that wasn't released to the public after Anita died.
Stuff you would have seen firsthand?
You would have had to have seen it, to know it, right? So she said, oh, she looked so peaceful, and she said she was wearing a robe too. That was never released to the public, and Anita's body had already been taken out of the apartment by the time they got Nicole to the apartment.
Yeah.
So she would have not seen her or known that she looked so peaceful or that she was wearing a robe unless she had seen her before the cops got there, right? So that's suspicious. And she said that there was a bowl of water in the sink where the killer had cleaned their hands. Now, that bowl had also already been taken out of the apartment by the time Nicole was brought in. So she wouldn't have known that either. Now, I will say that cops are people too. And one of the cops could have said something about it and she heard it. You know what I mean? And then she turned it into, I saw this, because, people like to make themselves victims.
Mm-hmm.
My roommate passed away.
Or they like to put themselves in the middle of it.
Right. So I wouldn't put that past them in this case at all either. So I'm just letting you know. But she never did say how she knew those things. She never said, oh, I heard somebody say it. Like, she never cleared any of that up. So they're working off the fact that she had to have seen it, right? The only witness that the defense called was Doug Coons, which is a criminal investigation expert. He didn't do his own investigation, right? He was brought in June of 2023 to review the investigation that was already done.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he says the inconsistencies in Nicole's statements were not significant enough to implicate her in the crime. Like, who cares that her timeline is off? Who cares that she says she went back to the apartment that night that she died? Who said, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't matter. Semantics. He points out that there was no direct evidence against her. Her alleged admissions, where she confessed to all those people, was all when she was drunk, so they shouldn't be given much weight. He is absolutely convinced that she had nothing to do with this.
Yeah, drunk words are sober thoughts.
So they say, yes. Now, he's convinced that Devin is the most likely suspect. So he's pointing out that this guy broke into a couple of houses in the area at the time with a knife to rob them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, he looks guilty of breaking into this apartment. They point out that he was in Montana, though, with his family. So they're like, he was in another state when she died. And we literally have a video of him at the train station where he got off the train. But according to this expert, that video does not show him actually exit the train. It just shows him walking with the people who exited the train.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean he was on it. And so he's saying what he did was actually met them at the station and then was walking with them when the video was taken. He harps on the fact that Devin has a criminal history of breaking into houses, robbing people, some sexual assault allegations or attempted sexual assault allegations. But Anita wasn't robbed or sexually assaulted. She was only killed. And Devin doesn't have a criminal history of that. So what would have been his motive?
Yeah, he's profiling him.
He is. He's like, oh, you broke into a house and this house was broken into, so you obviously did it. But...
And, maybe he broke in there and she caught him.
Yeah, and then he stabs and runs.
But, he would have to have a key.
Unless he went through that window.
I'm kind of leaning on the...
On the key?
No, I'm kind of leaning on the key, but, I'm leaning more towards the, how to get it through that screen without ripping it.
Without ripping it. Yeah, because it is a window, so it is up high. It's not like it's down low where you can just step right through. Yeah, so it's not as easy as it sounds. Now, he did rob a house in that area after Anita died, and he did not kill anybody in that house. And so they're really just pushing that it had to be him. So they're just basically don't look at Anita or don't look at Nicole. Look at Devin. He's the one. And the state cross-examined him, and it really pissed him off. This was the absolute highlight of the state's performance in this trial, was the cross-examination of their one witness that the defense called. They really broke down all of what he's saying, and that he basically just read reports. He only says that Devin did it because the FBI believed that Devin could have done it. They bring up that Devin had told the police, they're like, well, you didn't buy a train ticket. And he's like, no, I gave the guy that works on the train $20 and he let me ride it without having to get a ticket. Well, they don't believe that. The defense is like, no, who does that? And they're like, people do it all the time. Anyways, so the only evidence that he was on the train is that video at the station. And like I said, it doesn't show him getting off the train, so they just really harp on that. And the state really had nothing. Like, if you break down the actual physical evidence in this case, there's nothing. There's nothing to show anybody did it. And people have died since this happened. So you're missing witnesses and stuff now. And then the ones that you do have are relying on a 20-year-old memory of the ones that are still here. So it's really nothing. And I think that that's why the jury found her not guilty on March 26th. Yes. Now, some of you may have seen the verdict in this trial being read. I heard that it went viral. Beavis and Batman acted like complete and utter fools. They were yelling out, making their way through the gallery, slapping hands and chest bumping. Okay, maybe they weren't chest bumping, but they might as well have, because it was wild.
All in front of Anita's family.
Right in their faces. It was so sad. And if you look at our case pic, those bottom two pictures are her attorneys hugging her, and then her attorneys making their way through the gallery behind her, hugging family and woo, yelling out. I mean, it was literally one of the most disgusting things I've ever seen in trial.
Yeah.
And they have caught hella shit for acting that way.
I should have got a contempt.
Yes, 100%. I don't know why the judge didn't. He seemed like a pretty cool dude too. Now, the lawyers did post on their Facebook on April 1st. Our team has been working tirelessly for 3 years to prepare for this trial. During this time, we became extremely close to our client's family. What the court cameras don't show is where our daily group prayers alongside our client's family, emotional conversations, and our team standing by as our client and her daughter said their goodbyes prior to the verdict being read. Justice would not have been served by convicting the wrong person. When the verdict was read, we reacted emotionally. We sincerely apologize to anyone who was offended, especially to Anita Knutson's family. The loss of Anita is heartbreaking, and we in no way intended disrespect.
Yeah.
But you gave it.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't intend to act like, my soccer team had just won the World Cup, but I did. What an idiot.
I mean, you guys want to act like holy rollers and everything. And I mean, and then just act out at the end of something. I mean, you got to hold yourself to a higher standard, especially in that type of setting.
Especially.
I mean, because the whole thing is if she would have been found guilty and then they would have acted out, then it would have been grounds for appeal. It would have been grounds for all kinds of different things just because the family member thought that they found justice and everything. But now that you guys did it and everything, I mean, do they get to appeal it?
No, now that she's not guilty, they can't even charge her again.
So now it's like, this is it for them.
This is it. Because who else are they going to go after? Devin?
But if that's what I'm saying, though, if the tables were turned and the family went through there slapping hands and everything else and, hugging everybody and just woo-hooing everything, then they would have gotten an appeal. They would have got granted an appeal to try to fight this because of the outburst.
Well, usually they can't if the outburst is after the verdict is read. It's usually before when the jury's still making their decision.
I'm just saying.
But at the same time, it would definitely be brought up. Like you're saying, it would definitely be brought up at appeal. Yeah. For sure. And it was bad. Google it. It is bad. They are acting like idiots. It was, I don't know.
If you want to come into a professional setting, you need to be professional all the way through.
I concur. They probably were only seeing dollar signs like, oh, now we're these attorneys, who've won this case. Okay.
You probably screwed yourself out of lots of work.
Yeah. And I was really, really disappointed in the state because they absolutely failed. They didn't show the interrogation videos with Nicole. They didn't bring in the murder weapon. They didn't even bring in the damaged screen. Like, they didn't show shit. None of it. Just a bunch of hearsay. So I kind of have to agree with the jury on this one.
So there wasn't really a fair shot for Anita's family.
No, they let this family down. Yep. And I know they've got a hard job, but like I said, bring some of this evidence in, bring some of the things that were involved in this case so the jury can see them. You want to put this stuff visually in these people's minds, and they did not. The only video they showed was of them cops trying to get out of the window. That's it. That was it. Nothing else.
Yeah.
They had a burden and they didn't prove their case. And for Anita's families and friends to have to wait all that time and then go through this trial and then have the frat boys acting like tools at the end. Yeah. It was just tough. It was really tough to watch. And then now, of course, you have no conviction. She can't be tried for it again. And the case has to remain open. So if there's any update on it ever, which sadly, I don't know how there could be. Maybe there will. I hope that there will. But we'll definitely update it if anything ever happens. But this verdict literally just came down a couple weeks ago. So it's very fresh.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's where we're at.
All right. Well.
So what?
There's another one.
I know. You're not getting any conclusions.
No.
If you do like our content, please be sure to like, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so that you can see new episodes whenever they drop. And if we ever go live, it'll notify you that too on YouTube. We do have Cash App at $MWTM pod.
Yep. And we also have Buy Me a Coffee at buymeacoffee.com/MWTM. And as always, don't forget to tell your friends.
Tell them.
I did say it.
You did.
So that's the end of this one. Come catch us on the next one. And if you guys would like to, if you know somebody that wants to do it, run an ad or whatever, just go to dna.truecrime@gmail.com.
Yep.
And we can get back with you and work it out.
Yeah.
All right. Till next time.
Bye.